Well, hello, Garland Nixon here, and calamities abound from the streets of the UK to the Middle East. Let's talk. Well, Garland Nixon here. Where do I start? If if I went the full length of everything that's going on, I'd be here. You by the time I got finished, you'd see a skeleton with cobwebs all over it. In front of the screen. So we're going to do what we can do. I see not a whole lot of people here. I suspect, basically, strongly suspect that YouTube is up to no good as always, and nobody's getting notifications. YouTube is not doing any notifications. So if you're on right now and you can, go ahead and copy the link above, or just hit share and share this on all your social media platforms as we go, because that's the only way we're going to get anything going on. YouTube, I think, has made their decision. Garland Nixon's voice must not be heard. Garland Nixon's transgressions must not be accepted. All right, let's get going. Let's start with the big one. So we've got a potential military clash looming in the Middle East. Apparently, Iran, as they said they would do, let's not forget, Iran notified the U.S. and Israel a while back, and they said basically, this is me paraphrasing, the days when Israel could punch any damn body they wanted and pay no price are over. You punch me, I'm punching back. We've had enough. Okay, it is. We're strong enough to do it. If you hit me, I'll hit you back. And they also said, if you threaten me with nukes, we'll have nukes very soon. We don't want nukes, but we're going to change that. If you threaten me with nukes, then you're going to be facing nukes, right? I would not be shocked if Iran already has nukes. If I were Iran, I'd already have nukes, to be quite frequently. And if Israel said, we got nukes, we're going to blast you, then I'd be quickly to say, yeah, we got them too. So if you want, you're going to get return fire. But at any rate, I also guess this. This is my guess. I believe this. I don't think Israel has nukes, but I really don't think they could use them without U.S. permission. Maybe wrong on that, but we will see what happens. Okay, let's continue. And again, that's just speculation. Who the hell knows? But let us continue. So one of the things that's going on that I've been reading, and maybe you have too, is that there's been airplane after airplane after airplane going from Russia to Iran, right? So it seems to me that Russia seems to be transferring technology to Iran, technological assistance, military assistance. It's certainly, and also that Russian former defense minister, and I forgot what he does now, but Sergei Shoigu is in Iran, right? I would guess he ain't the only military mind from Russia that's in Iran right now. I suspect that Russia's position is going to be, you can arm Ukraine to the teeth. You can provide drones and space-based targeting and all of that stuff for Ukraine. Two can play at that game. That U.S. has backed themselves into a corner wherein if they clash with Ukraine, that Russia, and mostly China, but Russia, see, people got to understand something. When we talk about Russia and China, I think it's critical to understand this. When it comes to economy, China's the big dog. They are the big dog when it comes to the economy. When it comes to military might, they're the huge dog in size of their military, the number of ships they have, used to be the number of personnel. I mean, their industrial capacity is, basically on a scale that no one else can even match in this world. So they can put out the stuff, and they are putting out the stuff. But when it comes to military technology, Russia's the big dog. Russia, let's face it, the Soviet Union had some absolutely incredible technical experts. And we now find in hindsight that the Soviet Union was actually pretty far ahead when it came to technology ahead of the U.S. Empire and its vassals. And what the Russians did was they made a lot of low-tech stuff, a lot of low-tech stuff, because if you're fighting on the ground, low-tech, wins. Yeah, I mean, if you, all kinds of things go bad, low-tech wins. When it comes down to it, if our guns jam and I got a club in my hand and you got an empty hand, I'm probably going to win, right? But the more technology fails or is unavailable, the more brute force, the more basic working technology becomes important. And I think the Soviet Union, in their plans, had some very good technology and some brilliant scientists, but they planned for a big old ground war a lot. And the U.S. went the other direction. Had no plans for ground war. We're all going to have technology, but our technology was based on neoliberal economics, which meant it was more important for the companies who were building the gear to make money than it was to build gear that works. And that's what we got. The good news is they made lots of money. The bad news is a lot of their stuff is over technical and isn't as reliable. And if it's defeated, then they got nothing left. So my understanding, so that's why I'm just saying, when it comes to military technology, Russia's the big dog right now. They got these all kind of hypersonic missiles, electronic warfare, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that I was reading was that their finest jamming equipment, electronic warfare, et cetera, is been being transferred to Iran, that they're setting it up. And it wouldn't shock me, most likely, in the same way that we got NATO troops in Ukraine operating Ukrainian stuff. I would not be shocked if Russian technicians, I mean, let's face it, that electronic warfare stuff is highly technical stuff. And you're not just going to train somebody in an hour to use it. Now, it's likely that they've been quietly training Iranians on a lot of their stuff for a long time, prepping for the time, and probably North Koreans, and on and on and on. Their allies are probably ready, if necessary, to fight with them, and they're ready to do what they need to do if they have to fight in some kind of a military bloc. But it certainly appears to me that they're going to give, or in the process of giving, Iran some really nasty stuff. The electronic warfare stuff, one of the things that does is it jams GPS signals, it jams various signals. So when missiles come in, when bombs, whatever come in that are GPS, you can jam them and they can't hit their targets, right? So I think that's one of the things that you'll see. They can jam signals, they can detect signals. So if the US or Israel starts putting guys on the ground there, they'll put some teams on the ground of special forces guys who, are involved in targeting and things like that. That electronic warfare will be able to pick up their signals, figure out where they are, will be able to jam their communication so they won't be able to communicate back to base, all kinds of things like that. Really, really disrupt their military plans. So the reality is Iran has a lot of really good stuff that they made themselves. They also have a lot of air defense stuff, Books, and their own version of Books and various things themselves that they've done pretty well with, drones, you name it, missiles. But I also suspect that some of the high-tech stuff that really thwarts Western technological advantages the Russians are providing them with, they've been tested. And see, again, Ukraine is going to come out to be a disaster for NATO, in that Russia's been able to work in Ukraine. They've been able to take apart NATO missiles, NATO technology, capture NATO technology, HIMARS, you name it. They've been able to take this stuff to pieces, figure out how it works, figure out, what frequencies, what band it works on, which makes it easier for their electronic warfare to jam it, and on and on. So I suspect that they're ready to load Iran with probably high-tech stuff. And I would say this, they probably don't have to give them the missiles and things like that. It's probably more like space-based targeting, electronic warfare. Keep in mind something else. Russia's got a dog in this fight for this reason. Russia has military bases in Syria. They've got the big Navy base. They've got the big Air Force base. Apparently they built another bases. So they got a dog in the fight, and that they need to protect themselves, which, might I add, if the U.S. gets involved, could also mean there's World War III, because if the U.S. starts throwing any ordnance in the direction of the Russians are going to start throwing ordnance back, and boom, we got World War III, right? There's a potential there. Russia has bases there. The other thing you got to look at for this Middle East issue is that you've got a lot of very unstable royal families and leadership, right? Jordan, hey, if this thing goes bad, let's face it. I mean, the King of Jordan, I think, is half British. Jordan, Egypt, some of the places like Bahrain and Qatar and places like that, that UAE, right? That try to keep, as they say, run the second base and keep one hand on first, or one foot on first. The ones that try to maintain the positions, political positions, military positions that they need to maintain in the Middle East in order to be credible. At the same time, they try to go along with the US and the West enough so that they can maintain their economic ties to them, right? And not be attacked. They know if you don't do what the US wants you, they'll kill you and overthrow your government. So you've got these governments in the Middle East that are unstable, that are playing against the home team and against US imperialism at the same time, and which makes them quite vulnerable, who are sitting there saying, man, if this thing goes, basically think of it like this. You got somebody who's running a country. This is not to defend him. This is not to attack him. This is the reality of things. This is just political reality. You got a government sitting there in charge of whatever country. Saudi Arabia, you name it. And they're saying, look, we're trying to play both ends here. We got to keep the West off our back. We got to keep their citizens. They want us to just go all out against Israel. 98, 99% of my citizens are just furious at Israel, and they want us to take a stronger position. But I got these economic issues with the West, and they'll overthrow me and put in some more puppets. So what the hell am I going to do? That puts them in a bad position. Not to defend them, not to attack them. Let's talk about that as reality, right? Because of that, they're sitting there saying, if things go to pieces, we have elements in this society just waiting to cut my damn head off. We got elements in our society that are quite extremist that'll say, okay, A, I'm going to kill the royal family or whoever it is. B, we're going to war with Israel. So you could see some instances where, and some of them could be in their own militaries. So you could see if this thing goes south, some governments fall. And that if those governments fall, and they the wrong element, shall we say, the less careful elements come to power, those governments could start throwing missiles at Israel. What about Pakistan? Pakistan has nukes. What could happen in Pakistan? We don't know. You know what I'm saying? So we've got a lot of countries that potentially could be at war with Israel and the US. Also, if the U.S. is perceived as being attacking on behalf of Israel, U.S. has bases all over the Middle East and all over Africa. And there are a lot of people in Africa that want U.S. the hell out, right? If things go south in the Middle East for the U.S. empire, French and American bases in Africa will certainly be vulnerable and could potentially be targeted. And basically what you could look at is in Africa, some of the powers that be saying, look, what a grand opportunity to get these friggin' Yankees the hell out of Africa once and for all. Now, might I add, let's go back to Russia. You armed Ukraine, didn't you? To the teeth. To hit Russia. Oh, we should be able to hit the Crimean Bridge. They should be able to attack anywhere in Russia. What do you think Russia's going to do in Africa, in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger? What do you think Russia's going to do? If these countries say, be nice if we had some missiles and some various and sundry other things, because we sure would like to get these friggin' Yankees the hell out of here once and for all. What do you think Russia's going to do? Well, if nobody's looking, here, I'll let you hold this missile. You didn't get it from me. And here's some targeting data. Boom, already programmed into the missile, believe it or not. And here, if you were to happen to need somebody to help you fire it, perhaps we'll we'll send a firing crew along with it, right? World War III, you know what I mean? World War III. Bottom line is, some clandestine, maybe some not, right? Some proxy, maybe some not. What do you think China's going to sit around? What do you think North Korea is going to sit around? Sleeping on a rock, right? So the bottom line is, the neoliberals who are sitting there, rubbing their hands together. Ooh, we want a piece of Iran. Well, the last time they wanted a piece of Iran, they got a piece of Iran. Oh, we want a piece of Iran. Iran just basically said, "You want a piece of me? No problem." But it was an elbow. But wham, that's what they gave him, a brushback. Kind of like you're playing basketball in the lane and some guy keeps crowding you. Boom, you shoot him an elbow and you let him know, "Hey, man, you're pushing me. You're pushing me, man. Get off my back." Whap. You see it in the NBA. Sometimes some guy gets a foul, but he's going to boom, shoot a little elbow out to remind somebody, "Hey, stop pushing me around." Right? Bottom line. That's all that Iran did last time. They shot an elbow out at Israel. Right? Israel's like, "Okay, ha ha ha. Look what we can do. We can bomb your consulate in Syria." Okay, whap, elbow right upside the head. Just to let you know, if we wanted to do a lot more, we could. Meanwhile, I would suspect Yemen has been heavily armed. Now, Iran has a lot of nasty missiles themselves, really nasty missiles. So would Russia arm the Ansar Allah, Yemen? I don't think they have to. I think things such as the P-40 Onyx missile, things like that, which are nasty, nasty anti-ship missiles. I think maybe some air defense. I think that Yemen's been shooting down a bunch of drones. So I think they do have some air defense capabilities. How much, I don't know, probably considerably more than they're using. They're probably holding off for a lot in case there's a major war. They've probably got a lot more missiles than they're, right now. They're doing brushbacks. They're hitting some ships here and there, but I would suspect they're holding off in case there's a big war. I would suspect that Yemen has a lot more hardware than we know. And of course, the Russians could give some to the Iranians, who could then give it to Yemen, plausible deniability, or they could simply, Iran's got some pretty nasty stuff. Right. Yemen's got drones and underwater drones and all of that kind of stuff. And they've been launching limited attacks on some of the US ships. Right. What happens if Yemen says, "Okay, this ain't going to be a limited attack," and they launch a combination salvo, where they send a bunch of their surface drones, maybe some underwater drones, maybe some airborne drones, and maybe some missiles, all at the same time. Basically, what countries have learned about Western power is this: it's an easy way to defeat it. You just overwhelm it, because Western power is designed to, ironically and oddly, Western power is designed to defend against Western power. Here's what I mean. They use expensive missiles and drones and expensive high-tech stuff, right? Which means in their projection, they are set to defend against the same kind of stuff that they use, expensive high-tech stuff. So if you fire $1 million, $2 million missile, they got a $2 million missile to block it. But if you fire a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 drone, they still got a $2 million missile to do it, to stop it. So what you can do is you can fire $500,000 worth of drones and missiles, $500,000 worth, and a $2 million missile don't have a chance. Right. So now let's say you've got $10,000, $20,000 drones. Okay. You fire 10 of those. You fire, I don't know. You fire between surface and underwater. You fire $400,000. What's that? 20 underwater and surface drones. Okay. So then you fire 2 or 3 missiles that cost you 50 or 100,000. You're at, whatever the case, you're at $500,000-$600,000, and they got $1-2 million missile to stop all of that. No, they're going to have to fire 20 missiles. But here's the other problem. Generally, air defense is when your air defense system detects a threat, develops a firing solution, and generally it fires 2 to 1, right? It fires 2 missiles or whatever it's going to fire to intercept it, right? Giving it a much higher probability. There's a mathematical There's mathematical formulas to determine, but bottom line is this now. If I got an 80%, if a 50% chance of hitting you or 40% chance of hitting my target, I fire 2. Now that dramatically increases. Not 80%. That's not the way it works. The formulas don't work that way. But the bottom line is this. I dramatically increase the probabilities of blocking of hitting striking the target if I fire multiple missiles. So now you're firing $20,000 things, and they got to fire a couple $2 million missiles per, right? Or take hits, and they can't even afford. What happens if this ship takes a hit from a $20,000 drone loaded with explosives, or 5 of them or 3 of them? They got problems, right? Depending upon where it hits, maybe real problems. Meanwhile, I got to block this missile. I got decisions to make, right? It's like when somebody throws 2 punches or combination punches or a punch and a kick at the same time, etc., right? They put you in a position of having to make decisions. Which one am I going to block? And if I block this one gets hit. You know what I mean? So you put a person in a position of having to make decisions, and rather than in a decision tree, they got a quandary. A quandary is, even as the old saying is, even when you win, you lose. If you make a decision to stop this one, you're going to hit by that one. You can't stop them all. You don't have the time or the resources to stop them all. And they're coming in at different speeds. You got these drones flying in at one speed. You got these surface drones coming in on the water at another speed. You're looking at, are there underwater drones coming in, and you got missiles coming in at a greater speed. So now your computers have to detect all of these things at different speeds, develop firing solutions for all of them, and you got to block them all. That ain't happening. You don't have the resources to do that. And as soon as that salvo comes in and you're dealing with that salvo, there's another salvo right behind it. How many of the salvos can you block? You're going down, Captain. You're going down, right? So the bottom line is, the U.S. is in a weak position in the Middle East. Weak position, because they got too many enemies. The axis of resistance can come in from so many different directions, and even further, the likelihood is this: they can hit them from directions that they haven't even. They've got stuff they haven't shown. They've got some of their hands that they haven't shown yet, or some of their cards that they haven't shown. So they probably likely got that stuff all over the place that they can hit with if they need to. Number one. Number two, if the U.S. decides we're going to start punching, then all their bases become vulnerable. How are they going to protect their ships and Israel and their bases, their airfields, they're all at the same time? What they would ultimately have to do, in all likelihood, is this: they would have to evacuate those bases. They would have no choice but to evacuate those bases. Because if they leave the people there, they got to continually defend the bases, and they're going to run out of ammo. Right now, we've given so much ammo to Ukraine. And what about all the stuff, sent to Taiwan? So the U.S. is so busy stoking up trouble in Taiwan, stoking up trouble in Ukraine, that they're running out of stuff themselves. And so now, what are they going to do? They're going to have to transfer stuff from Taiwan and the Pacific to Ukraine and the quote European theater, Pacific theater. They're going to have to transfer all that stuff to the Middle East. But that doesn't mean that things won't blow up in those theaters. You strike back at Russia, you hit a couple of Russian bases, you don't know what's going to go down in the Middle East, how they're going to punch back. And the U.S. is setting themselves up for a disaster, because what happens if a U.S. ship goes down? What happens if a U.S. carrier goes down? What happens when U.S. soldiers start dying by the hundreds or the thousands? Now, what is the U.S. going to do? We're going to war on behalf of Israel, a country that so many of your citizens at home see as a pariah. Your own citizens see as a pariah. You're going to call all these young people who are freaking in the streets holding up "I'm with Free Palestine" signs, and you're going to say, all right, good news, you're being drafted and you're going to go fight on behalf of Israel? At this point, the U.S. starts to fall apart internally. Right or wrong? The U.S. says we're going to go to war and we're going to bring all you people in. The U.S. is going to start to go to. Them young people ain't going. They ain't going. They ain't going. They ain't going. They ain't going to fight on behalf of Israel. I mean, will you find some? Yeah, maybe some conservative whatever. So yeah, we got to fight on behalf of Israel, but you're going to have the extreme destabilization at home. Then what? Wouldn't shock me if they tried to cancel an election, because let's face it, we already know what's going to happen now. I would say right now, based on what I've seen, um, they get to a point where the Democrats don't even have a chance. We're moving towards that direction. And even if they had one, let me see something. I want to show you something. If they thought they had a chance, I want to show you something that is important. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find it. All right. This is, let me show you what their potential for winning looks like. This is their potential for winning. You got to see this.
So you're now no longer are you necessarily keeping those private files in some file cabinet that's locked in the basement of the house. It's on your laptop, and it's then therefore up here in this cloud that exists above us, right? It's no longer in a physical place. So you're
So if things weren't bad enough, that's who they got running for president. A person who, let's face it, if things weren't bad enough, they got a person they're running for president who they're like trying to convince us is some kind of a brilliant genius that Trump is scared to death of, right? And she says, your data is in your laptops. And it's in the cloud above us. It's no longer in a physical place. I got a question. This is the first question that popped into my mind. What kind of place ain't physical? It's in a non-physical, it's no longer in a physical place. Well, it's in a non-physical place. That's the only place that wouldn't be physical, would be non-physical. No, Kamala, it's in the servers. They have gigantic server farms, huge storage areas with all of these gigantic servers, these gigantic, basically hard drives, you might as well say, and they store the data there. It's not above us. Above us, cloud storage. I guess it's in the clouds, or maybe they have those computers where they do the cloud storage and all of the hard drives. They stick them on a plane and fly them above us. It's no longer in a physical place. So they have a person who does not even understand the basics, not even the basics of computers and of technology, and cannot even logically perceive the concepts of technology, the foundational concepts. Cloud, I guess it's up there. The word cloud to her means it's above us. So she says, it's a cloud. Yeah, I guess it's up there. They said cloud. Hey, it makes sense to me. If you're an idiot, it makes sense to you. And so the Democrats now have decided that this person is some kind of a genius. Trump's afraid of her. I've heard people say this. Trump's afraid of Kamala Harris. He doesn't want to debate her. If Trump has half a brain, which I don't know if he does, but if he did, he would debate her 100. Yes, I'd like to debate you every single day that I could on every network I can. And you know what? All he'd have to do, it would be Joe Biden part 2. You think Joe Biden did a debacle? Look, at least Joe Biden had an excuse. He's got like some kind of cognitive decline. He's 80 years old. Okay, it's like I could be mad at Joe Biden over his policies, but I can't be mad over his dementia or whatever. I got to say that's unfair. You can't do that to a person with dementia. That's elder abuse, right? But then you stick Kamala Harris out there. What is that? That's called a moron. That's called a person who, okay, let's be nice about it. Not everybody understands technology. Not everybody understands a lot of things. Some people, when you say cloud, they literally think physically up in the air. They think metaphorical cloud means up. So they said cloud, it's got above us, not in a physical place. It's almost like, well, they're clouds. I guess that's heaven. And there's angels up there with their wings and they have our data flying around among it. It's not a physical place. Who doesn't understand the basics of grammar? Not in a physical place implies that wherever this data is, that place is not physical. But how could it be a place if it wasn't physical? The word place implies physical. But when you say then therefore in the middle of your sentence, you just don't know what the hell you're talking about. So if things weren't bad enough for them, for the Democrats, that's who they're putting out there. And might I add, that should tell you something. That's how we got here. That's how we got here. People who have no thought of policy, no concern for policy, no concern for an intellectual person who understands things, who can make decisions, who can think, what should we do? No. They want Joe Biden, a guy who's a brain dead neocon, who they can just say, go, 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 attack, attack. We're running the world. I mean, what did Joe Biden say? I'm running the world. Yeah, well, it looks like you are running the world. From the way the world looks right now, Joe Biden, kind of looks like you are running the world. This is the outcome I would expect if Joe Biden was running the world or Kamala Harris. We're supposed to believe that Kamala Harris is best suited to run this country. I ain't saying that Trump is best suited, because he ain't. We got smart people. Dr. Jeffrey Sachs. If I had to choose a president, it would be Dr. Jeffrey Sachs. There's a man that's brilliant. I ain't saying he's perfect. I ain't saying he's right about everything, but I'm saying he is an intellectual. He's a smart person. Can't we just start with a smart person? Why do we have to have these idiots? Why? Because the ruling elite doesn't want to show their face and they need an avatar. That's all. The ruling elite doesn't want to show their face. They want somebody who's compliant. They want somebody who's corrupt, so they got a lot of dirt on them. And so they can tell the person what to do. They want somebody who's a climber, who wants power and money, or the appearance of power and money. And so they can control them. They can put the carrot in front of them, and that person can keep biting at the carrot. Here, like the donkey, right? They hang a carrot in front of you, so you chase the carrot. You ain't never getting that carrot. But the idea is not that the carrot. The idea is to get you to chase the carrot, to go after this thing in front of you, so they can keep you moving forward, doing what they going in the direction they want you to go. That's why they got brain dead Joe Biden right now, and that's why they're trying to convince everybody that somebody who has basically the IQ of a head of lettuce is the second coming of, I guess she's supposed to be Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt was brilliant. Eleanor Roosevelt could have been president. Very well could have been president. Brilliant, brilliant woman. A backbone of titanium, right? Whether somebody agrees with her political ideology or not, they could not deny that Eleanor Roosevelt was capable of being president and making decisions and leading the country on a particular path. Like I said, whether you agree with the path or not, she wasn't an idiot. She was very smart. I tend to agree with the path, right? But you might not. But you can't say she's incompetent and unable to handle the job. Eleanor Roosevelt was a badass woman, right? She ain't Eleanor Roosevelt. Okay? She ain't even Eleanor Rigby. So at any rate, let's move forward. So that's where they are. That's how we got here. That's it. Joe Biden's, Kamala Harris's, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, good old Olaf Scholz. Those are the kind of morons. Annalena Baerbock. That's how we got there, with a bunch of lunatics and idiots and incompetent boobs. And now where are we? Sitting on the precipice. They had to keep poking Iran and poking Iran and poking Iran. But meanwhile, let's not forget, Ukraine's still going on. Let's not, as this debacle in the Middle East unfolds, Ukraine's losing town after town. They're keeping it quiet. Oh, Ukraine is losing an unthinkable number of soldiers. I think they lost 60,000 soldiers in 1 month, like July or something. 60,000 soldiers in a month. Let's see, 10 months, that's 600,000 soldiers. About a year, ain't nobody left in Ukraine. Damn near ain't nobody left now. I talked to somebody recently, and they were telling me this true story. I was talking to some Ukrainians who are here. I was interviewing people looking into some things. And what I found is there are a lot of Ukrainians who, let's say you're in the US, let's say you're in Germany, wherever, right? And you've got a visa, you've got a passport, you've got paperwork that expires. And every so often you have to go back to the Ukrainian consulate and you have to get it renewed, right? You got to get your stuff renewed. You got to get your stuff done, right? But you got all of these Ukrainians that are becoming illegal. Why? Because think about this. You got a bunch of Ukrainians that say, if I go there to get my paperwork renewed, they're going to set first, they've got to show that they're signed up for the military. They got to show their draft status, right? So you go but to the Ukrainian to consulate and you say, okay, I want to renew my paperwork to stay in the US or stay in Germany or stay in the UK. And what are they going to say? First, let me see your draft papers to make sure that your status for a selective service and military service is up to date. And they're like, yeah, but if I do this, they're going to take me back and send me to the front. I ain't doing that. So now you have a bunch of illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, you might as well call them, that are Ukrainian because they are afraid to go to their consulate to renew their paperwork, their visas, their this, their that, whatever they got to renew, because they're afraid, because as that was said to me, it's suicide. It's suicide if I do that. I'm a dead man. I might as well stay here and try to tough it out any way I can. Hide, whatever. So now you've got Ukrainians who are in the West who are hiding both from the Ukrainian government and from Western governments because they're illegal here. And they know if they go back there, it's suicide. So you got that disaster. Okay. Meanwhile, you got neoliberalism playing out in the UK. Let's go to there. Neoliberalism is playing out in the UK. Here's what do I mean? A significant part of people say neoliberalism is the economic part of these, this group, this thing, this monster that we're talking about that leads the West, imperialism. I don't know what word you want to use, but that neoliberalism is the domestic policy and the economic policy, which is cultural wokeness, neoliberal economics, right? Austerity, etc. And that neoconservatism is the military, expansionist, aggressive military version, element of that particular, this beast that we're talking about, right? You can use words to separate them, but it's all the same thing, right? It's the U.S. empire. The U.S. decided it's going to run the world. And so these things are all happening, all of them, as a result of this twisted ideology. Let's talk about the UK for a second. What's going on in the UK? Oh, hell's breaking loose in the UK, right? Let's see. Maybe we can find a video. We got a video? Okay. Let's look at what's happening in the UK. What's going down in the UK? I think this is a migrant, immigrant hotel or something, right? So look at the police. They don't look happy. So they're going in a migrant hotel. They're pulling stuff out. This is the UK. I guess they're lighting the place on fire now. All right. So in the UK, what do we got? Escape. All right. So what do we got in the UK? Kind of looks like a dystopian friggin' nightmare, doesn't it? People are running around the streets. Looks like a zombie apocalypse. They're probably eating each other by now. Let's face it, they're kind of hungry in Europe. So I guess immigrants might be kind of tasty. Anybody they can get their hands on, they may be eating. So that's an obvious, maybe a motivation for the crowd. But they're flipping out. They're going around. They're attacking migrants. They're burning things down. They're doing the old soccer hooligan thing, right? A nightmare. Why? What caused that? Neoliberalism. Two things. Number one, How does immigration happen? Let's see. You go to a lot of Middle Eastern and African immigrants, aren't it? Gee, let's see. What is the British Empire and the U.S. Empire done continuously? Attacked and destabilized Middle East and impoverished Middle East countries. What has the U.S. done? What has the U.S. and British military, imperialist empire been doing for centuries? Impoverishing and robbing the hell out of Africa. Isn't it interesting that the people who you've been robbing and impoverishing like hell, now their people show up on your doorstep? See, you impoverish their countries. You bomb their countries. You destabilize their countries. You put puppet governments in charge of their countries. The chickens are coming home to roost. And now their immigrants are saying, hey, those people are like, hey, our country's screwed thanks to you. And they're blaming them. Well, they're economically and intellectually and philosophically and culturally inferior to us, really. And you stole all their shit. You stole their stuff, man. You can say that. You stole their stuff, and you've been stealing their stuff for centuries. And now you're bombing the hell out of their countries, and they're looking, as human beings will, for a more stable environment. And your country happens to be a stable environment that you built on their backs. And now what's happening? Now the indigenous people in England are pissed. And they're blaming the immigrants. Damn these immigrants. Why? Because not only did you destabilize their countries and impoverish those countries, and now you've done it to your own. Now that you can't get much from them, Russia and China is now over there in Africa and Middle East, and it's harder for you to rob them and steal them and take their oil and take all their stuff. And now that you can't rob and steal from the global South anymore, you're starting to get poor. And you know what you're doing? You're turning inside to your own people. And now you're like, oh, I got an idea. Here's what we can do. Austerity. What is austerity? It's just another way of increasing profits. Really, it's another way for the ultra rich to say, well, our money, some of our money is going out to give you guys health care and subsidize your energy costs and things like that make your lives livable and you're affordable, and rent help and things like that, because we're in a neoliberal country and you need some help, right? So we're going to do austerity and take everything from you. Now your life is going to go to hell. Oh, by the way, we're going to give all your money to Ukraine, the military. We're going to go along with everything you don't want, and you're going to suffer. Okay. So what's happening now? It's coming. Chickens are coming home to roost. The soccer hooligans, as it were, the hooligans, unfortunately for them, they ain't smart enough to realize that it's the ruling elite yet. Yet. They're not smart enough to realize that it is the ruling elite that screwed them. So now they're looking for somebody to blame. And there's some immigrants. And they're pissed. And they're seeing money going to the immigrants. So now they're going to go after the immigrants. They're going to try to be in there. If we could only get rid of these immigrants, things would just be fine. It ain't the immigrants that made the decisions to close down your factories and send them to China and Bangladesh and Vietnam and every damn where else. Nah, the immigrants didn't do that. And any immigrants that robbed and bombed Africa and the Middle East and destabilized those countries so those people got on a bunch of friggin' boats and showed up at your front door, it wasn't immigrants that made those decisions. It was the ruling elite. But it has started because of the anger and the dystopian nightmare that they already live in. They're homeless, they're hungry, they have no future, they have no present. And they're looking for some way to vent that anger. Unfortunately for the immigrants, they're punching at the immigrants. But at some point, what happens when they punch at the immigrants? They punch at the immigrants and still nothing changes. They're going to start punching and it ain't going to be at the immigrants. At some point, sadly, unfortunately, it's horrible that these people are blaming and attacking the immigrants. I mean, think about it. The immigrants are the poorest people in your country. You're blaming the poorest people. Some of them can't even speak the damn language. That's who's at fault. That doesn't make sense. It's like, let's just say Microsoft went bad and it fell apart, and you went to Microsoft headquarters to blame somebody, and you went downstairs and there's a guy sweeping, and you say, you son of a bitch, you destroyed my company. And he says, no hablo inglés, right? He's a Spanish guy who came to the United States, somehow got a job sweeping the floor in the basement. He's cleaning the bathrooms, he's mopping the floor. Microsoft falls apart and you blame him. He didn't know nothing about that damn country. He didn't make those decisions. He came there because he's trying to eat. Same thing you're trying to do. You may not like it. You may not be happy with him being there. He's just trying to eat, brother, same as you. You need to go up to the top floor to the corner office and talk to the CEOs and the board of directors because they are filthy rich and getting richer. They stole all the money, dude. They destroyed the company. They wiped it out. They're making decisions that the company's going to fall apart, and you and the other workers are going to lose your jobs. But don't blame the guy in the basement who's sweeping the floors and cleaning the bathrooms. It wasn't his decision. It is the decision makers that did this. They are the source of your pain. But unfortunately, soccer hooligans aren't intelligent enough to figure that out yet. And if they ever do, all hell's going to break loose. And at some point they will, because they can keep going after the immigrants all they want to. They can keep attacking the immigrants. Ain't nothing going to change. In fact, you know what will happen? It'll give those very same bastards that run everything the excuse they want to attack you. Well, you know, we've got a bunch of unruly hooligans. And you know what they're going to do to those unruly hooligans? They're going to, we've got to throw them all off social media. It was social media. It was TikTok. It was YouTube. It was Twitter, Smitter, Fritter, whatever the hell, right? They're going to start by saying, we've got an excuse to do what we already wanted to do. We wanted to crack down on social media. Boom, let's do that. And we'll lock up your bank accounts and boom, boom, boom. You're going to give them a chance to pound the crap out of you, and they don't have to take anything in return because you're going after the immigrants. They'll take advantage of it. They'll use that as a win to further oppress you because you ain't figured out who's doing the dirt to you. It only makes sense. I want somebody to say, no, Garland, you're wrong. Don't blame the ruling elite. It's not their fault. You got to kick the immigrants out. They have created a dynamic. The dynamic is people from oppressed countries who have been oppressed by your government and my government. Destabilized countries who have been destabilized by your government and my government in desperation come follow the resources that have been stolen from them back to the country that stole them to try to get some of that. Hey, I'm going to the United States. They stole all our crap and they took it back to the US. I'm going there. They're living okay. Maybe I can get some of that. You know what? Even if you were to throw out we've seen it right here. What do? They take an immigrant and they send them back to wherever the hell. Next couple days later, he's right back at the border again, right? You do there, throw him there, he comes back to the border. In fact, let me add this. The U.S. is setting up a dynamic, Trump and Biden both, for even more immigrants. They're like, we're tired of these immigrants at the border. Damn it. We got to do something to stop them. Oh, really? What are you going to do? More sanctions on Venezuela. We'll totally impoverish Venezuela. We'll make life difficult for Venezuela. You think any Venezuelans may just walk away and say, I'll just go to the U.S. border and try to make it? These lunatics, these idiots, pretend like these immigrants just show up at the border because they don't have nothing better to do on a Thursday. Because these immigrants are like, it's Thursday. What are you going to do? I have no idea. Let's walk through a poisonous snake-infested jungles in South America. Then we'll hit a desert with no food, with people who are beating us, raping us, mistreating us. And then when we get to the border, then we'll head on into the U.S. Because what the hell? I mean, things are quite well in our country, but we just want to see what's going on maybe in Texas or Louisiana. What the hell? No, that ain't the way it's working, buddy. They're showing up at the border because the United States has destabilized and destroyed their countries, and they're impoverished and they're desperate, and they're coming home to the United States, where all of their bananas were stolen from their country. The bananas were what? They are in a supermarket in Miami, and they go into Miami saying, you took my damn bananas back to Miami. I'm coming to Miami to get some of my bananas. They ain't here. I can't eat them. Why not I go where they've been taken to, right? That's what we're looking at. And so you got a bunch of people who haven't figured out that it is the decision makers. They're always looking for somebody to blame other than the decision makers who create. Well, it's the Chinese, those damn Chinese, sick of the Chinese. They did all kinds of terrible things. Really? What did the Chinese do? Well, when the oligarchs in the United States decided that they were going to close the factories and move them all to China so that they could get cheaper labor and screw us over and make greater profits, the Chinese allowed them to do it. Oh, so the Chinese allowed the oligarchs to screw us, and you're blaming the Chinese. Really? There you go. There you go. You're blaming the person who was there, and the U.S. they were there and they were poor and they weren't doing well. And the US said, hey, how would you like to make some money? What do you think they're going to say? Nah, we just prefer to stay poor here in China. And then we transferred technology there so they could build the stuff. And they took the technology and expanded on it and got it, improved it. And they made things, and now they can make things that we can't make. And they've got the labor. They got 1.5 billion people or so. They can do it better than we can. We created that dynamic, and now it's China's fault. We got to play all those damn Chinese. Got to get them and stop them. And let me add this about the Middle East. Sometimes the only things Americans learn from is pain. Sometimes the only thing Americans learn from is pain. Now, they've been putting up with these neoliberal governments, neoconservative, whatever you want to call them, imperialists who go around the world starting war after war, doing all this stuff, blowing and bombing because they don't feel the pain. And Americans are just like, yes, Kamala Harris is great. Well, you ain't feeling the pain of the Biden administration. As we see some weird economic crap going on right now, right? As we see some potential economic collapse, and those of us who have been looking at neoliberalism for a while have been saying it's a coming, and it might be right around the corner. But what happens if things go south in the Middle East? All of these neocons, right? All of this, the government, the people that call it the deep state, I just call it the state, right? But, oh, we want war with Iran. We want war with Iran. And my question has always been, and how do you think your war with Iran is going to affect the price of gas? And how do you think, let's just say the price of gas doubles, triples, quadruples, which is a potential. How do you think that's going to affect the political environment in the United States? What do you think happens to the polls for old Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the Democrats if we wake up Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday this week, and it's $10 a gallon, $12, $15, $14 a gallon, $8 a gallon, $7 a gallon, whatever the hell. Let's say $7 a gallon, but it could be $14, $15 a gallon. That's it for our economy. If gas quadruples and diesel fuel quadruples, triples, doubles, whatever, doubles, what does that mean for grocery prices? Because the groceries, the trucks that bring your groceries run on diesel fuel. The trains that move these things around, the tractor trailers that move these around, the ones that deliver them, the boats that go out shrimping and fishing and harvesting seafood, on and on and on, they run off of what? They run off of diesel fuel, most all of them. How do you think your electric bill is going to look when you've got a power plant that's running off of oil and things of that nature, gas, whatever the case may be? How do you think your electric bill is going to look? What do you think people are going to do? If inflation hasn't been bad enough, what will the inflation numbers be if the Middle East goes bad and you're 50% double in gas, 75%, 175%, 200%, whatever, increases in gas prices, in fuel, in energy prices? Might I add you this, who has a lot of energy? Russia. If energy prices go through the roof, let's say they double or triple, Russia's got first of all, I mean, nobody wants a war, but economically, Russia's going to make a fortune. Russia would not be able to accept all the money that they have. And what is Europe going to do? They've cut themselves off from Russian energy. The one group of people who still have energy, Russia's cut them off. And what about this Ukraine conflict? Can the U.S. afford another day of this Ukraine conflict if everything falls apart? What about the Biden administration? If gas goes up, doubles, there ain't no point in them spending another dime, not even another penny, on trying to get a real, a Kamala Harris elected. That horse has left the barn. Right or wrong, that horse has left the barn. If the prices of gas goes up, then the chance of Kamala Harris, which ain't too great, but the chance of Kamala Harris getting elected drops to 00. 10 ain't good enough. You got to put 0.000000000, all zeros. I don't care if Donald Trump disappears off into another dimension and they run a picture of Donald Trump against her. They can run a picture of Donald Duck against her. If the price of fuel goes up as high as I suspect it would, if there is a war in the Middle East, it's over for the Democrats. Wiped out. And Congress ain't gonna look no better. Congress wouldn't look any better. You'd have to go to a museum to find a Democrat in Congress. Period. It's over for them. People are gonna say, "What the hell are you doing?" Americans may be needed. Maybe Americans, they have been able to shield themselves. We're over here, America's involved in a war, and they send some in Afghanistan, blah blah blah. We're sending ships to that. Taiwan's, I don't know how far away. It's 7,000 miles away. We can go get a war. Yeah, there won't be no problems here. If things go down, even if it isn't a full-fledged war in the Middle East, the destabilization alone is going to dramatically increase the cost of energy alone. So the situation is looking bleak to me, first and foremost, for the Biden administration. And let's face it. I mean, I could go on and on and on. It's very dangerous for people in the Middle East. Their lives are endangered, but we could go on and on and on. And let me add this, and that's it for Israel. Let's face it. If Israel is involved in some huge confrontation with not just Iran, I mean, what is Israel going to do? If the missiles are whistling in from Hezbollah, coming in from Yemen, coming in from Syria, coming in from Iraq, coming in from Bahrain, coming in from all directions, missiles are coming in from directions you didn't even think, and things get blown to hell. Then Israel says, that's all right, we're going to respond. And they respond, and then back and forth a response starts. And then things are blowing up in Israel. Everybody in Israel who can get the hell out is getting the hell out, and they ain't coming back. I would imagine a lot of them are getting the hell out right now. But I see that's the death of Israel. The death of Israel is not necessarily that it gets blown to smithereens by its adversaries. The death of Israel is that all of those Jewish people who have come to Israel, remember the philosophy of Israel. You must come here. Why do you have to come here? Because there's anti-Semitism all over the world. You're not safe. This is the only place you're safe. You see where I'm going with this? So if it comes down to this, yeah, there's missiles going back between Israel and every damn body in the Middle East, and Israel's a pile of smoke and pile of rubble and just fighting all the time. Ain't nobody in their right mind going to stay there if they got anywhere else to go. It's over. And afterwards, you know what people are going to be like? I'm not going back there, man. Once that happens people are going to be afraid that it'll happen again. And then what do you have? What will Israel be? The only people left there will be the insane settlers. That's what Israel will be. It'll be just the settlers. And everybody, when they have the next vote, who will it be? Ben-Gvir and Smotrich will be in charge. The genocidal maniacs will be in charge. So it ain't going to get anything but worse. It's going to be nothing. And then what? If you have Israel with genocidal nut fruitcakes in charge, what kind of economy they're going to have? Who's going to invest in Israel? Who's going to buy stuff from Israel? And it's just constantly at war. Who's going to want to live there? The U.S. is in a jam. To say it's in a jam is the understatement of all understatements. To say that U.S. is in a jam is the equivalent of referring to a tidal wave as moisture. They're in a quandary. Whatever they do, as I said, even when you win, you lose. Whatever they do is going to make the situation worse. And now, and it's been, what's interesting is this. Let me add this. This is the ultimate end of hegemony. Here's what I mean, of U.S. hegemony, of U.S. imperialism. Here's what I mean. The part of the U.S. hegemonism, U.S. imperialism, is the ability to act and you can't. I can punch you and you can't punch me back. It's like a guy standing there holding a gun on some guy and he reaches up and slaps him. Bap! Now what are you going to do? He can't do nothing because you got a gun on him. If he slaps you back, he dies. Now he can slap you back, but you'll kill him. That was the US and Israel. We can do anything we want. We can act with impunity because if we do this, you can't do anything in return, right? Now Iran changed the game and Russia changed the game. We'll come to your border. Russia says, you can't do that, man. You can't come to our border. The hell with you. We can do anything we want. Russia, you can't tell us that we can't come to your border. And Russia said, well, we maybe can't tell you this. We kick your ass off when you come here, so let's dance. So that we go to Russia's border. Russia says, let's dance. If you think you can stay here, you can stay here. But we don't think you can. So Russia's fighting on their border. Say, you can't have Ukraine. If you want Ukraine, you got to fight for Ukraine. And we're willing to fight for it. Let's see if you are. Right? So now we got the Middle East and Israel. Ha, ha, ha. We've done this and that to Iran. We'll do anything we want to anybody. So they slapped Iran a while back. Bomb their consulate. Iran hits them with an elbow. Bap! This is just to let you know what we can do if we want to. Okay, this is a brushback. We hit some things, but we gave you a brushback pitch. Next one, we're going to beam you right between the stinking eyes, buddy. You know the baseball metaphors, right? A brushback pitch and somebody's crowding the plate. They're up close to the plate. They're trying to make the strike zone smaller, and the pitcher doesn't like that. It doesn't work for him, so he throws an inside pitch close to their head. They call it chin music. Right past his chin, and the guy backs away from the plate. He's not crowding the strike zone. He's not going to try to make it. The pitcher says, hey, I'm not going to let you you're making it impossible for me to be successful. I'm going to have to give you a signal that says I'm not tolerating that. It's going to be a little too dangerous for you, right? That's all Israel did. Some chin music. I mean, that's all Iran did to Israel. Some chin music. They brushed them back. Now they're saying, all right, this time you're going to get hit with a pitch. They're saying the U.S. apparently now is saying to Iranians, look, you might not want to do this. And the Iranians like, we don't want to hear it. And they've said to Iran, well, this could start a regional war. And Iran said, that's up to you. If it starts a war, it starts a war. We're not afraid. It's like this. Look, it's like this. Some big guy comes to Garland and says, I'll beat you. I'll take your stuff. I'll do this. I'll do that. And Garland says, all right, come on, let's go. Well, if you do, I'm going to punch you. You're going to have to do it. Let's go. We're going to dance. We're going to fight. And whatever happens, happens. I'm not afraid. I'll tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to sit here and let you push me around, talk to me any kind of way, take my stuff, eat my food, walk in my house, poop on the floor, and then leave. No, that's not happening. When you get to the door, we're going to fight. If you can do all those things, you got to get by me to do them. Let's do it. As opposed to stand by, okay, go ahead, walk by the refrigerator's over there, take what you want when you get finished and leave. Iran's sick of that. You come to their front door, trying to push them around. Well, you better not push back harder. There's going to be a war. Yeah, there will be a war. If you want a war, we can have a war. We don't want a war. But we're not the ones who threw the punches. If you didn't want a war, you should have thought about that before. Now, we're going to throw some punches back if you want a war. Now, here's what the United States knows. Here's what the Biden administration knows. They get a war. Could be it. Could be curtains for the U.S. It could be curtains for us because, look. I don't know how much you know about derivatives, credit default swaps, etc. You got all these speculators out there in the energy market because neoliberalism is all about speculation, right? Basically, it's like a person betting to lose, right? So what do? They make all these speculations, energy futures, etc. So I put $1 billion in energy futures, but I go to these insurance companies, credit default swap. If it defaults, I don't eat it, you do. So I go to these insurance companies and I basically buy insurance. I've said, I'm betting all of this that the price and cost of energy is going to go up. And if it goes up, I make money. But if it doesn't go up, I bought insurance so that if it goes down, this insurance company will pay me the difference so I can't lose, right? Okay, fine. So you got all of these people with all of these energy futures, with all of these energy bets in the stock market. But all of them have gone to these insurance companies basically and bought insurance so that if it all craps out, they're going to get paid trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars worth. But what happens? 2008, that's what happened, right? What happens if all of this energy stuff, if everything goes bad? Think about it like this. What would happen if a life insurance company who insures millions and millions and millions of people, right? If everybody died at the same time, Every single life insurance person that they insure just said, blump, and dropped. Could they pay it? Of course not. They couldn't pay them all at the same time. They have a pool of people. And because they have X amount of people, they can decide how many people are most likely to die based on a number of factors and what they can and can't pay and blah, blah, blah. But if too many people die, they can't pay it off. And some of them are reinsurers. Reinsurer means I insure you, and then I insure what I've, we go down that rabbit hole, right? What I've insured for you. But if all of the energy futures crap out, if everybody who's bet on future energy prices going up loses that bet at the same time, the insurance companies can't pay it. So now you have credit default swaps. Trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars at the same time. Now, I know what you're saying. The US will buy them out. They'll just print money. Oh, no, brother. You're going to print 10 trillion, 20, 30 trillion dollars, 60, 50 trillion dollars worth of money. You're $35 trillion in debt. What happens if you try to print that amount of money? The value of your money goes to nothing. People won't buy your T-bonds, treasury bonds, T-bills. The people won't buy your treasury bonds. They're like, yeah, you guys have gone crazy. You just printed $20 trillion worth of money. I don't think that's going to be worth much. Ain't nobody buying it. You can't do it. If you do, you get hyperinflation and your dollar's worth. I mean, there are limits to everything. And now the dollar's worth a penny. Now you need a wheelbarrow worth of dollars in order to buy a bicycle. A piece of bubble gum. So they're in a position where they can't pay it off, which means the whole derivatives market, all of that stuff just collapses. And guess what? You got teachers and policemen and employees and companies who have all of their money in the bond market. They bought all of these bonds. All these bonds go to pieces. How are they going to pay all of these retired people their money? Because their investments have just went south. They ain't making any money. Now the Teachers Union of Southern California, the Exxon, whoever, that have people that are retired. And there's money in the bond market, so they can make money of that bond market and they can pay their retirees, and that bond market collapses. And they have no money to pay their retirees. And guess what? At the end of the month, this retiree gets a check. Ain't nothing in it. It's an empty envelope. See what I mean? So what you're looking is systemic collapse. Oh, is that worth Zionism? That's what Israel's worth? Because what does the U.S. have Israel there for? Initially they had Israel there so that they could have a military presence in the Middle East where all the oil is, so they can control the oil. So not only do they lose the oil, they lose everything. Everything. That is the potential we're looking at here. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying there's a potential there for that to happen. And if a war kicks off in the Middle East, what happens? Straits of Hormuz closes down. No gas and oil's coming out of there. Ships aren't going to want to go there anyway. Let's face it. If there's missiles flying all over the place, are you sending your Maersk lines and some of these other shipping lines? Are you going to send your ships into a war zone with missiles flying all over the place? When the Houthis, Ansar Allah says, any ship that comes in here now, everything's closed. No ship goes through the Red Sea. Nothing, zero. Nobody's going through the Red Sea. The other day, China started sending ships through the northern route, which is Russia's route, the northern route, which is up around Russia, that Russia can control and protect, and they can use these nuclear icebreakers of Russia's to get them through, right? I think they're doing that because they realize things could go bad in the Mediterranean, the Straits of Hormuz, on and on and on in the Middle East area, and they're starting to practice saying if things go bad there, we want another route. So China and Russia is trying to figure this thing out of how they're going to do things if things go bad in the Middle East. But the bottom line is this, and of course, if things go bad in the Middle East, I think things go bad for the U.S. and Africa too. I think Russia has armed the living crap out of some of these African nations. And if things go bad in the Middle East, some of these African bases, these AFRICOM bases will start getting slapped with maybe mortars and missiles and small missiles at first, and the U.S. will have to evacuate them because they just won't be able to protect them. And before you know it, the U.S. empire will be contracting back to its own shores. That this could be the end. At any rate, I don't know that any of this is going to happen. We don't know, but just my thoughts on all of that. Gotta run. Share this on all your social media platforms. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much, everybody, for taking time out of your busy day. I'm supposed to go on vacation to Myrtle Beach from Wednesday through next Wednesday, but I'll still be doing shows from down there. I'll still take all my equipment. Hell, by then, who knows what will happen? I may not be able to afford gas to drive to Myrtle Beach, but we will see. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Please share this on all your most social media platform. I'm out.